It's the Sick Podcast, CF Montreal Talk, episode number 3. CF Montreal play in Austin on Saturday night at 7:30. Injuries are starting to add up for the team. One player is likely going to play out of position. Why one center back over another? The decision not to enter the MLS Next Pro is really starting to hurt the club, especially in the last couple of weeks. And what will be the starting 11 this weekend? We discuss on the Sick Podcast, CF Montreal Talk. I'm Marinaro. Joining me, Filosa and DeFalco, right here.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to the Sick Podcast. CF Montreal Talk.
Here's the chance. They've got the goal. Absolutely incredible. Cameron Porter delivers the goal to send Montreal Impact into the CONCACAF Champions League semi-final.
The sickest CF Montreal podcast. It's gonna be sick.
All right, and here we are, Marinaro with Filosa to my left and DeFalco on my right. CF Montreal lose game 1 of their season in Florida at Inter Miami by a score of 2-0. We know that. They prepare for game 2 Saturday night in Austin. Guys, injuries were obviously a problem last game, even more so after the game, because add to the injuries, an injury to goalkeeper James Pantemis. Filosa, you and I were at practice earlier this week along with DeFalco. Talk to us about the injuries.
Well, there's a bunch of guys that right now are not available for head coach. Let's start with James Pantemis. We're talking about 2 to 6 weeks, depending on how fastly he heals, and we're going to talk about the keeper situation in just a few minutes. Joel Waterman is doubtful for Saturday, but not impossible. He might play in that game. He was training by himself this week at Olympic Stadium. And the thing about Hernan Lozada and what he said this week is he doesn't have the same philosophy as Wilfred Nancy. He says even if a guy doesn't train during the week with the rest of the team, if he's ready to go on game day, he will play. Then obviously you got a couple of long-term injuries. Matko Milovic is out for a long time. We know that. Then there are other guys who have little injuries. Quizera has a little injury. The young kid that they just signed, Usman Jabang, has a little injury. Same thing for Robert Thorkelson. So all in all, they have 7 players at this moment that are not available to play.
It's a nightmare, guys, but I think the biggest loss right now is Joel Waterman, who played very good in the last 2 years, especially last year. 30 starts, 30 games. This guy was a stay-home defenseman with a good upside offensively, 3 goals, 4 assists, who, by the way, is a Canadian kid, very good kid, who's not costing a lot of money, but right now his time on the injury list makes everything up. So you put Piette in the center back position, Herrera out of position. I don't know about that, guys, but I'm very worried about this game against Austin.
All right, so last game, Herrera starts at center back with Camacho and with Miller. In the second half, an adjustment is made to get Herrera out of there, to put him at the right wing back position. When they do so, they end up taking Samuel Piette from his regular CDM number 6 spot, and they put him as a center back. He was feisty and combative, but obviously he's not used to that position. Based on what we saw this week at practice, don't be surprised if Samuel Piette starts at center back again. Now, before we get to that point, at practice yesterday, I asked Coach Lozada, why Piette at center back and why not Wanyama? Listen in, watch.
Let me ask you about Wanyama, who played there when he was with Celtic. A more experienced player than Piette, 4 years older, 1.88 m versus 1.71 m, better in aerial. Your thoughts on why not Wanyama?
I already saw him playing as a center back, and I think he's much more important for us, for our team, as a defensive midfielder.
Coach, can I get back to just one thing you said on Wanyama for a second?
Tell me.
Is that when you talk about his importance to the team, in reference to his importance as a 6 or his importance as a veteran and a mentor, that if he's going to have Piette playing center back, if you have a young player next to him, they'll be better insulated with Wanyama?
Both. Yes, you have a good point. Both. I think he gives us a lot of balance. I also believe Sam can be a little bit more mobile. It doesn't mean that Sam now will play as a center back. It's just an emergency for a game where Aaron, when Sam was there, play a lot higher. I think those were our best minutes of the game, where we had the best chance to score the 1-1. So are things that we try also during the week, but it was an emergency because we didn't have a real center back to play. But I will reconsider your question with Wanyama as a center back, but I do believe that, like you say, it will be a lot more important for us on the midfield.
Guys, I'm going to get back to what I brought up. Look, with all due respect to Coach Losada, who, by the way, answered the question, didn't hide, and I thought was very generous with his answer. I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say this. There's no one who can convince me otherwise, not Jose Mourinho, not Pep Guardiola, that Victor Wanyama, for 1 game, 2 games, 3 games, 5 games, would make for a better center back than Samuel Piette. And I get back to that once again. A, he played the position with Celtic. B, he's 1.88 m compared to 1.71 m. C, meaning he's a lot better with aerial balls. 4, he's bigger, he's stronger, he's more experienced. I mean, add it all up. Having said that, this is what I think, guys, and I could be wrong, okay? When Wanyama stays as a 6, they're either going to put Saliba, Iliadis, or Zouir next to him. Mm-hmm. I believe in that order. I believe Saliba will have the preference. And those are 3 young, rather inexperienced players. And I believe the coach believes that Wanyama will be able to insulate them better. And more importantly, in the cases of those young players, you have an opportunity here of players that you can play, develop, grow, and maybe one day sell. And if you want to sell them for as much as you can, they have to look good as soon as possible. And I think, and I said this before the season started, guys, I have this in my head, and there's probably no one who's going to take it out of my head right now. For me, the guy that's on the top of that list that they've identified is Nathan Saliba. Mm-hmm. And I believe they want to give this kid a push. That's why he started game 1. With all due respect to him, he should not have started game 1. Chouanier should have been ahead of him. Reyes should have been ahead of him. And Hamdi should have been ahead of him. Because of that, I believe he's the guy that's going to get the push. I even thought that before the game. This is where, guys, I'm not saying they're doing this to make Saliba look better. Obviously, the coach thinks he has a better chance to win the game.
Listen,
but
Tony, I mean, at this stage of the year, you're in game 2. If you're thinking of who can we make look good, honestly, it's not a good game plan. Seriously. I mean, I think the coach has got to go with the guys that he thinks will help him. You know, when you have an injury at an important position and you have a lack of depth, because right now you have so many injured players, what I don't want to see is the domino effect. You understand what I'm saying about the domino effect is you move one guy out of position, then you got to move another guy out of position, then you got to move a third guy sometimes out of position to be able to complete your lineup. I don't want that, okay? And I know it's going to happen because Piette said it yesterday on RDS. They asked him, how likely is it that you'll play central defense this weekend? He said, very likely. So, I mean, unless he's lying, Sam will be there to start that game. But personally, I don't like it. I think they should keep the lineup the way it is. Live with Herrera as a center back. Give Zach Brault-Guillard another start. And please, just keep guys in their own roles. Keep Wanyama where he is. Keep Piette where he is. Start Rhea. And you'll have most of the players on the field playing their real and own position. They'll be in the right chairs. That's just my opinion.
Guys, I'm not convinced about Samuel Piette as a defender, especially his height. We know that the MLS is a very physical league. Who's going to win those aerial battles? I'm not convinced about that. I would put, Herrera, not Herrera, same thing as the same lineup as last week, or you put Wanyama as center back and you move Herrera as a wing. I don't have a problem with that, but I don't think it's a good idea, guys. I know that Losada likes Wanyama, and I know the experts of the MLS, they love Wanyama as a number 6, probably one of the best 3 D-mid in this league. At the same time, he brings some poise, he brings some energy. He's a second coach out there, and he wants to dictate the tempo of the game, but I don't think Sam Piette as a defender is a great idea, guys.
Okay, so let's put the cards on the table. This sporting director and his assistant have done amazing work. Unfortunately, you can't get everything done in one off season, and there's 1 or 2 areas that they weren't able to shore up, and it's really hurt them. Which one is it? Left back. Guys, if they would have brought in a left back, Kamal Miller plays central defense with Camacho, and Herrera plays right back, and the problem is solved. And if it's not Herrera, it's Zachary Brault-Guillard. The fact they don't have a left back has really hurt them, with Campbell being hurt, with Waterman being hurt, and with Thorkelson being hurt, it's really, really hurt them. And now we're going to talk about the MLS Next Pro, guys. Here's the thing. The organization has told us over the past couple of years that they're okay, that they're the only team that doesn't have, that they're not in the MLS Next Pro, that they're okay with it. But here's the deal, guys. In the past couple of weeks, it's hurt them tremendously, because if you would have had a team in the MLS Next Pro, and those players, by the way, are under contract and they're paid, you can take those players and you can call them up for a couple of games to help you out in emergency situations like this one, where they have a goalkeeper hurt, where they have center backs hurt, where they're missing a left back. The fact they don't have an MLS Next Pro team, now all of a sudden you don't have a Karifa Yao. You have to let him go. He goes to another team. Guys, it's really hurting right now.
Definitely. And you look like a guy like a Karifa Yao, who could have been with your squad right now had you had an MLS Next Pro, because you're going to need those depth guys, those young guys that you know will play with the reserve team, but eventually you're going to need them, and you're going to test them also with your MLS team. The reality is right now we're not on par with the rest of the league. It hurts us because, as you mentioned, we can't make any call-ups. Right now, from what I'm hearing, is the plan is they might send one of the young keepers to Austin as a third keeper, but we're talking about somebody here who is not under contract, so they would have to sign him before the game in order to get him dressed if by any chance someone gets hurt, whether it be Logan Ketterer or Jonathan Sirois. So it's far, far from ideal. But the worst
Jeremy,
part
pardon me, if they're going to do that, they're going to do that with Matisse Ebad, who was with the team during pro camp.
Possibly. But what I'm saying is, for a team that's saying that they want to buy, develop, and sell, not to have a team in the MLS Next Pro. And I know that this means investing money, but this is the major leagues. You decided to be part of a major league system. Well, when every other team has a team in that second division, you got to do the same. This is going to hurt them in the long run. I mean, it's a subject.
If I can, I'm going to take it another step. Okay. Getting rid of the U19, guys, no one's going to take it out of my head. Big mistake. I understand if you're on a budget, you have to cut expenses somewhere. If you have a 15, a 17, a 19, and a 23, well, the 19 is not the one to cut, because between 17 and 23, there's a gap of 6 years. So you know what happens? You have a bunch of kids for several years, 3, 4, 5 years. All of a sudden, if you find that they're not growing and they can't compete with guys that are at a U23 level, you're going to cut them all. So all the money that you invested in young kids, now all of a sudden you have a decision to make, and you're getting rid of a lot of them. And guess what? There are late bloomers in sport and in soccer.
Course.
And, the kid who's the best player at 15 or 16 doesn't mean he's going to be the best player at 18 or 19. Mm-hmm. And now you've just cut that kid, and now you don't have him anymore. What do you do?
Yeah.
Then they end up calling them back. They end up bringing them back with the 23s. Guys, that's not the way you do stuff.
It's not the way. No, exactly. And when you say you got to do things on a budget, why? If we had an owner who didn't have the money, I'd say, okay, we don't have a choice, right? But the money's there, guys. I mean, there's no excuse here. You got to find a way. You spent 1 year away from MLS Next Pro last year. This is going to be the second one. It's got to be the last one, guys.
Guys, low budget, money ball. Call it to whatever you want. It doesn't make sense to be the only MLS team who don't have a team in the MLS Next Pro. Doesn't make sense. Like you said, Jeremy, it's a franchise that wants to develop and sell in Europe. Doesn't make sense. Same thing. You loan some players in the CPL. I don't have a problem with that. But when you loan a player in the CPL, doesn't mean that he's going to play at his position. Doesn't mean that he's going to have the playing time. So it's like this time right now, it's two discussion. We want to sell, but we don't want to invest in a farm system. Guys, for me, with all the fans, I think 99% would say, you know what, it doesn't make sense.
Guys, listen, your best elements, your best young elements, at the end of the day, when you're going to propose to them to go play in the CPL for zero, in the PLSQ for zero, they'll just choose to sign with a CPL team, as some of them have done over the last couple of weeks.
Well, I mean, if you're choosing to sign with a CPL team, it's probably because you don't have the caliber to play with the MLS.
No, but that's fine. That's fine. That's why you have a reserve team. And
I totally get that. But here's the deal, guys. Let's put the cards on the table. If you would ask everyone off the record, are they better off in MLS Next Pro or not? Everyone's going to say yes.
Of course.
Now, a lot of people close to the situation who have gone through it believe that the players that are in their system, the reason why they don't have to be an MLS Next Pro is a lot of the players that are going to make the jump a lot of them are predetermined at a very young age. They label them, they stamp, they label them, they identify them at age 15 or 17. They play with Canada's youth program. They take a couple of them in there, and boom, those are the guys that they want to push going forward, which is, by the way, it's their prerogative if they want to do it that way. But I can tell you right now, once again, that if you would have had an MLS Next Pro team, all of a sudden it's opportunities for other players. It's opportunities for players to be late bloomers. It's opportunities for other players to shine. And this way, based on what they have, their structure, 15, 17, 23, what do you think's happening? The players that were identified at 15 and 17, those are the players that they're going to keep pushing. That's it.
I just want to put a name out there, guys. Mo Farsi, who left the Montreal organization to play with Columbus Crew number 2 last year in the MLS Next Pro. Where is he right now? He's in the Major League Soccer as a right wing back for Wilfred Nancy. He's a starter right now. He's a good Chinook.
Yeah. And you know what? I have to hand it to his agents who have done a really good job with him, because he was in the CPL and he was one of the best players in the CPL. And they made the decision to bring him to MLS Next Pro, Columbus Crew. And a lot of people were scratching their heads thinking that it could have been a step back for his career. Instead, it ended up being a vault for him to make it to the MLS with the Columbus Crew. And Obelisk did a real good job with him. All right, okay. The starting 11 for this weekend. Jeremy, give me a formation. DeFalco, I'll ask you for one. And then maybe besides what they're going to start with, we'll talk about what we would start with.
Okay, so exactly. So I'm going to start with what I would start.
Yes.
Okay, so Sirois there. Lassie, we don't have a choice. He's going to be on the left-hand side. Obviously, I have Miller, Camacho. Then I would start Herrera and Zach Brault-Guillard. I would continue with Piette and Wanyama in the middle of the park with Sean Ray in front of them. And I would start Kyoto and Mason Toy. That would be my lineup. But I know that's not going to be the lineup for this Saturday.
Yeah.
Me too. I think it's going to be like Piette, center back, Herrera on the right side. Wanyama controls the midfield with 2 number 10s. Chouanière at Sean Rea. I think Sean Rea is due to have a good game, and I think he proved it in the last half hour, last game, that he has the poise to play in the MLS. And one striker only with Romel Kyoto, and I expect a good game from Jonathan Sirois, who didn't look a lot of impressed in the last game. He didn't look nervous. I think he looked like a veteran out there. He's only 21 years old, but as we said in the last podcast, he played like 45 games in the CPL in the last 2 seasons. Is looking good out there. So I'm happy for Joe Sirois.
All right, so I would go with a 4-2-3-1.
Oh.
I'd have Brault-Guillard and Herrera as my fullbacks, and by the way, I know that they're both right backs more than they are left backs, but I'd go with both of them as my fullbacks. I'd go with Kamal Miller and Camacho as my center backs. I would go with Piette and Wanyama in front of the back line, and then with the 3 other players, you can go with Sean Rea on one wing. You can go with Kyoto. You can go with Chouanière if you wanted to on the other wing, and I would go with Chinozo Ofor up top. You can also go with Sanusi instead of Chouanière, and I'd go with Chinozo Ofor on top with Kyoto right behind them. That's what I would do. Marinaro. They're not going to do that, guys.
No, they haven't practiced the 4-2-3-1 in a long time, Tony.
Correct. Their formation of preference, at one point, they used to be a 4-2-3-1, and they changed. And they went to a 3-4-2-1. And that's why, if you take a look at this year so far, it doesn't have Losada's fingerprints all over it. It's a continuation of what was done a year ago. And what was done a year ago was not the way Wilfred Nancy wanted to play. It was the way Olivier Renard wanted the playing philosophy of this team to be.
It's been clear by the organization that they decide how the team is going to play.
That is correct.
And when Lozada came in, he was told, this is the way we want to play. And they've been practicing like that all throughout camp. Yes, they switched it up a little bit during some of the games that they played behind closed doors, but I don't think they're going at 4 because you know what? They would have done it last week if they were going to do it. And clearly, they want to keep that same pattern, so I don't see them changing formations.
We heard that Losada is an offensive-minded coach. I just want to see more verticality against Austin this weekend. That's why I dress personally Choinière and Rea, who brings a lot of speed in the midfield, and Kyoto up front, only one striker. And I wonder if Mason Toye is going to have his minutes this weekend. That's another question, guys.
Nah, you know what? I don't think they're banking on Mason Toye this week, this weekend or this year. And I told you guys that.
Yeah.
I don't think Mason Toye has a long-term future here. And
why is that?
But Tony, if you want to trade him,
yeah,
he's gonna need some numbers out there.
That I understand, but the fact that you can just see things coming from a mile away, you can just tell that in their opinion, Sanusi, Ibrahim, and Chinoso 04 have already supplanted Mason Toye. Guys, whether you believe it or not, we believe it or not, I think the optics are there. It's in front of us. You just have to look at it. I'll get back to my lineup in just a second here. I think it's going to go 3-4-2-1. I think it's going to be Camacho with Miller on his left and Piette on his right. I think as CDMs, you're going to have Wanyama and Saliba. And I think at right wing back, you're going to have Herrera. At left wing back, you'll have Lapalainen. And then Kyoto will play up top. And the two players behind him will be Rea and Choinière. If it's not Choinière, it'll be Sanusi. So it's either one of those two lineups is going to play versus Austin. And Atash Tetsuk, this is a team that has firepower. I especially like what they have up top, of course, with Rigoni on the left. They have Fagundes on the right, and they got Driussi in behind Zardes. Driussi scored last week. This guy's an MVP player. Yeah. He and Zardes are going to be very, very difficult to contain. We have ourselves a game this weekend in Austin, guys.
Tony, I don't expect Montreal to win this weekend. Like you said, too much power, too much talent for Austin, but I think we got to check that Austin is playing the CONCACAF Champions League this Tuesday against a team from Haiti in Dominican Republic, because the situation in Haiti is not that safe. So I think they're going to dress a pretty good lineup against Montreal. But even the depth for Austin is amazing. You see, like Maxi Rudy is proved MLS player, Ethan Findlay, and I can go on and on.
Offensively, there's no problem, but they lack balance, Gavino. They just gave up 3 goals to an expansion team. Let's not forget that.
But
this is a winnable game on the weekend. I'm not so sure they will.
Tony, they made some stupid mistakes against St. Louis, and I don't think they're going to do the same mistakes against Montreal. You know, they don't want to start the season at home 0-2. That's impossible. Jeremy.
People make mistakes, Gavino. Some people get married 3 times. Jeremy, as they say in French, le mot de la fin. Final words.
Okay, final words. Listen, I mean, it's not the end of the world if they don't get a win this weekend. If they play well, get a tie in Austin, just get some confidence, and especially start getting used to playing together, because last week I felt like we saw a team that was playing on 2 different fronts, wasn't really sure which foot to put front first. So that's all I want to see this week. A little bit more cohesion and especially more scoring chances.
It is the Sick Podcast, CF Montreal Talk. We are talking CF Montreal. Follow it, share it with your friends, tell everyone about it. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's absolutely free. And follow us on Twitter at SickPod, CFMTL. Marinaro, Filosa, Di Falco. Go CF Montreal, go.
Ciao, guys.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast, CF Montreal Talk on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.